Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started with strategies for successful college writing. I am Julie Johnson Archer with the Online Writing Center at ACU Dallas. I'm also joined by Dr. Stephanie Short, also with the Online Writing Center, and we are going to be presenting today. As you see, we've got a little chat question for you. Some of you have already answered in the chat room. If you are in a class or even more than one class that you're enrolled in this term and it has a writing component, then definitely post that in the chat room. And even if the writing component is a discussion post, so that should cover all of your courses. So let me know in the chat room what courses you're in. That'll be helpful to me, and I can try my best to tailor some of this information to you and those courses as we move through. Also, I want to mention, as we are getting started here, if you have questions for either me or Stephanie, you can feel free to send us a direct chat in Zoom, or you can just send a chat to everyone and we will do our best to answer all of your questions as they're coming in. And if you need us to slow down or go over anything again, definitely let us know. So if you're new to the Online Writing Center, here's a little bit of information just about us to get us started. The Online Writing Center offers free tutoring to ACU undergraduate and graduate students, and that includes doctoral students as well. And we have a video that will walk you through the steps of how to make a tutoring appointment and submit your paper for feedback. We work with students at any stage of your writing process, so don't feel like you have to have a polished or finished draft to submit to the Writing Center. Maybe you just have a paragraph or an outline. You can submit something early in your writing process, or if it's a final draft, that's great too. You can also submit discussion posts and get feedback on that. Any writing projects you're working on, we're happy to help you and give you feedback. If you do sign up for an appointment in our scheduling system, that appointment will be asynchronous. By default, all of our appointments right now are asynchronous. And so what that means is that you don't have to show up in a Zoom room or a phone call at the time of your appointment. Instead, you simply upload your paper by the time of your appointment, and the tutor who's working with you will send you feedback via email within 24 hours of the time of your appointment. And that's a pretty quick turnaround time. So just check your inbox within 24 hours of your appointment for an email titled Writing Center Report. And that's how you'll get feedback from a tutor. If you're interested in chatting in real time, maybe a Zoom session and taking a look at something with a tutor, and actually having a real-time conversation, you can always request that. And the best way to do that is to email us, the whole team. Our email address is right here on the screen, onlinewritingcenter@acu.edu. And so if you want to request a real-time appointment, we'll do our best to accommodate your requests. It will help us if you also list a few available times or windows of time that would work for you. And that way, one of our tutors can be more likely to help you get that appointment quickly. You can also email our team, again, at onlinewritingcenter@acu.edu, if you just have a quick question, maybe an APA question about how to cite a source or how to access the template. Any of those quick questions, we're happy to help you through email as well. If you haven't already, check out the Online Writing Center's website. We have a lot of resources available to you about writing, lots of different aspects of writing, some sample papers, and all of our webinars are also recorded and posted to our Writing Center's web page. So if you're interested in looking at what are some of the previous webinars we've hosted, You can see them on our website and view them whenever you would like. And you can also download these slides. So if you are interested in downloading and viewing these slides again, maybe you have to even hop out of this webinar early, that's fine. You can come and go and just know that you have access to the rest of the slides and the video on our website, which Stephanie has already posted for you in the chat room if you'd like to go check it out. Thanks, Stephanie. So in a nutshell, here is the submission process. Again, to make an appointment with the Online Writing Center, first you need to schedule an appointment with us, and our schedule is called WC Online. Make sure you create the appointment and get a confirmation email that the appointment was saved. That's a really important step. If you miss it, the tutor won't know that you have submitted a paper. So schedule that appointment and make sure you receive that confirmation email. The second step is to submit your paper to that week's Canvas link. And this is a link in the appointment form. So it'll take you to Canvas and it'll look like how you submit your papers for your coursework as well. And so I want to mention that you don't have to do these first two steps at the same time. You can schedule an appointment up to 2 weeks in advance. And let's say you do have something coming up in a week or two, you might not have started writing at that point, but you can go ahead and schedule an appointment to save your spot. And then anytime before that appointment, just make sure you go in and submit your paper. The last step, step 3, is to wait and receive your feedback again within 24 hours of your appointment time. I've got a great question in the chat room about how to search for books in Zotero for specific content. I'm actually going to direct you to a library resource on Zotero. So give me just a moment. Our ACU librarians have a lot of great resources in addition to webinars. And so let me find that webinar for you and I'll post it in the chat room. But our librarians are there to help you. You can chat with them, set up meetings with them as well if you have research related questions, and they're great at helping you with Zotero. All right, so I'm going to post a link to the library's website to the chat room. And if you go to that link, there will be a few different tabs, and there are library tutorials for a variety of things. One of those is Zotero. So check out that. And if you ever have questions, you can send them an email, or again, you could send the Online Writing Center an email, and we'll also help you with whatever it is you're working on. A couple of other webinars that are coming up that I'll mention. One on Tuesday, September 7th, is Avoiding Plagiarism with APA 7. So you might have heard of APA, maybe you're a pro at it, but that's the style that is required of almost every program at ACU. So if you're citing your sources, you're going to be using APA. And if you're unfamiliar with that, or even if you are, this is a great webinar to mark your calendar and attend to help you make sure you're giving those citations correctly and avoiding plagiarism, which is something that is very common, usually accidental. And so it's a great thing to go over those basics and get into some examples of how to avoid plagiarism in your writing. Another one that's coming up on the 14th is an undergraduate student drop-in writing support session. And that one usually also involves student services. So we work together and you can come in, ask your questions, and then head out whenever you need to go. that's a great one as well. If you have a writing project coming up, bring your writing project to that one, and we might workshop some of your questions together. Like I mentioned, we record all of our webinars, and so if you want to go and watch any of our recorded webinars, you can on our website. I've also given you links here to our YouTube channel, which also has many of our webinars. And so if you check out our YouTube channel, we've got a different playlist for different writers and different needs. So undergraduate writers, check out the undergraduate webinar playlist. Videos on that playlist include an intro to APA 7th edition. Again, avoiding plagiarism, we've done that one already. So if you don't want to wait to attend it live this term, you can go watch a previous term of that webinar. Another relevant one might be how to record a PowerPoint presentation, and that's a really brief tutorial. So if you've got something like that coming up, it might be good to watch. And all those links are in the chat room as well for you if you want to go save them and watch them later. All right, so we have a few key learning objectives for the rest of this webinar. The first is to become familiar with writing-related resources, which we've already started doing. I've given you a few, but if you have more questions about resources, definitely ask in the chat room. Another objective is to get into the college level writing mindset and then gain strategies for success in your writing, all of your writing tasks this term. So before I get too far into these slides, I do want to give you a tour of some of those resources I've mentioned. So the first one is going to be our scheduling website. So if you want to go into the chat room, that link is there and you can follow along, or you can just watch on the screen. So let me pull this up. All right, you should now see my web browser. This is WC Online, and this is our schedule to make an appointment with us. Let's see if I can make it a little bigger. Here we go. I will mention that later on this term, we are actually planning to revamp the login system here to access our schedule. Ultimately, it's to make it easier for you to access, and you'll just use your ACU email sign in just like you do for Banner, My ACU. And so if you see something different later this term, it shouldn't inhibit you at all. It should make things easier. But right now, if you are to make an appointment, this is what it looks like. And if it's your very first time to make an appointment, you'll click register for an account. You'll use your ACU email address, and then you'll create your own password. Once you do that, you will log in, and I'll just show you what it looks like. If I can remember my password. Oh, I'm sorry, y'all. Give me one moment. I'm sure I'm not alone in this. You know what? I was going to show you the student view, but I'll show you my view instead. It's very similar to what your screen will look like when you open up our schedule. The only difference is the color of these boxes is a little different for you, but once you log in, this is what the schedule looks like, and the current day of the week is what pops up first. So there's some actual availability tonight if you are interested in scheduling an appointment as soon as tonight. But again, you can go through each week, clicking next week, To see next week's availability up to 2 weeks in advance, you can schedule a time. So the available times are the white boxes. And if they're grayed out or blacked out, that means those are unavailable times. So you can see I would like to maybe work with Julie at 5 p.m. on September 9th. You can sign up for that by clicking on this little square. When you click on that, it will open up a new appointment form. And if you're working on a long project or something that's like 6 or 7 pages or longer, you can make the appointment for an hour by changing the time here. So it automatically sets it up to be 30 minutes, but I can change that to be an hour long right here at the top. Here are the links to submit your paper. Again, you don't have to submit right when you make your appointment, but when you're ready to, here are those links, and they are updated every week. And then you'll fill out each of these sections, text box areas, and click Create Appointment. And this is the button that will send you that confirmation email that I discussed. So don't forget to hit Create Appointment before you close the window. All right, so if you have any questions about this, I can answer those. But I'm also going to show you the Online Writing Center's website. So I've got it bookmarked. You might do the same if that's how you navigate things really quickly. But you can also access our website through any Canvas course. On the left-hand menu, it'll say Online Writing Center. And so that will take you here as well. All right, so a few things I'll point out. This first link, again, that'll take you to our schedule if you want to make an appointment. But you can read about us, who the tutors are, and our mission, the services we offer, including writing webinars. So I'm going to show you our webinar page really quickly. I want to point out that this link is a registration link. And some of you might have already registered for some webinars, but if you haven't, and you look through the Fall 1 schedule here, which is listed right at the top of our web page, and you see upcoming on Thursday, writing about psychosocial vectors, if you are in the higher ed program, or if you're in the healthcare administration program taking Healthcare Administration 201. This Thursday, I'm going to give a webinar on that. If you see something that you're interested in, even if you're not sure you can attend it, we recommend that you use this link to register. What that will do is you'll get a reminder email the day before, just to let you know, hey, this is going on tomorrow night or tomorrow at this time. And then after the webinar is over, usually within a day or two, you'll receive an email automatically with the video recording and the slide deck. So it's a great way to just be in the loop about our writing webinars. So let me grab this link for you. Post that in the chat. Again, you don't have to RSVP. You can show up to any of these webinars. That's fine, but that's a good thing to know about. If you scroll past our current schedule, so these are all of our webinars for the Fall 1 term. If you scroll past that, here is our warehouse of webinars. So let's say you're in a Bible class. Well, we can click on this first tab and see all of the webinars that have something to do with Bible 101, scroll past it, Bible 102, Bible 211, and so forth. So this is a great organized table to see what we've already got that's available and might be really relevant to the course that you are in this term or an upcoming course to help you prepare. So I saw someone is in a leadership program and taking a leadership course. Well, we can scroll through here and see Are there any webinars that deal with Lead 711, for example? And you can see which ones are relevant to which assignments or which aspects of writing in these courses. So I just wanted to point that out to you to help you know what resources are available to you. If you go to the resources page, this first one is a popular one, the APA 7th edition. We've got a paper template, which I can show you later if we have time. But also there's other APA resources and you can scroll through these. If you need extra help navigating APA. And if you do, you are not alone. That's why we've got a lot of resources about APA. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to go back to our slides and keep moving through our objectives. A few other writing resources that you have available to you in addition to the Writing Center. You also have access to tutor.com, and you have access to a certain number of hours with tutor.com for free as an ACU student. So you can access them through Canvas, and you use your ACU email address and make sure you use those hours. You can submit papers to them and get tutoring on a variety of subjects. I mentioned our YouTube channel and our website already. I mentioned our paper template. This is a time saver. If you're unfamiliar with APA, you can download our course paper template, open it up in Microsoft Word, and you can just type directly into this template, knowing that it'll be formatted in APA. We've also got a webinar playlist on YouTube all about APA, in addition to an APA self-paced course. Now, in your Canvas course list, you should already be enrolled in this. This is just a resource for you. It's not an actual course with assignments or anything, but in that, there's a Turnitin self-checker. So if you want to submit papers and see, how am I scoring in Turnitin? Are things matching other resources and getting flagged as plagiarism? You can check that before you submit to your professors. And that is a great thing I really highly suggest doing to help you avoid plagiarism, essentially. APA's got a great website as well. So if you don't have the APA manual on hand, then go to the APA style.apa.org, this last link, and they've got a lot of resources available to you as well. So check out their website. All right, so moving into our next objective, getting into the college writing mindset.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to go over some strategies that you can focus or that you can follow to focus on your writing and keep progressing in your assignments and be successful with academic writing in general. It's imperative when you're doing academic writing that your writing is very directed and it's aligned with the assignment or the discussion instructions. And so what I would suggest you do the first thing is to read, read the assignment prompt before doing the readings. And if you read the assignment prompt before you do the readings, you will know what to look for, and you'll be able to pick out and highlight the parts in the readings that will help you complete the assignment task. If you don't read the assignment prompts before doing the reading, you will end up backtracking or hunting and rereading to find the places that you might have a vague memory about. This can be exhausting. So to save you a lot of time, read the assignment prompt first so that you can keep to a steady pace instead of backtracking. Okay, so by creating an outline, you can almost be assured to cover everything in the assignment, which will, of course, result in better grades. You can usually make an outline from the assignment prompt or the rubric, especially if there's questions that you have to answer from the assignment prompt or various themes to look for. to complete the assignment. But having an outline usually assures that you're going to cover every and each part of that assignment. Okay, and we also have the APA course template, which we told you about, and you can download it to your computer, and this will help you with your APA structural formatting of any assignments and essays. And with this template, required components like the title page and the references page are already formatted for you, so you can fill in the fields with your own information. All right, do exactly what is asked first. Academic writing in APA is pretty much no nonsense. It asks for a straightforward and logical format. Therefore, make sure, especially if it's a short discussion or short assignment, say 250 pages, to adhere to addressing specifically what is being asked of you in the discussion and assignment prompt and the grading rubrics before adding anything extra. So your professor will be looking for this information specifically. Because of this, it is actually recommended that you mirror the language that your professor uses in the prompt. For instance, if the professor says, what are the main points of the reading? Then you are welcome to mirror back the language. The main points of the reading are, and this demonstrates that you've adhered to these instructions. So it is important too to keep the target length of the assignment in mind, because if you're writing a shorter discussion or assignment, which usually like 1 page, you would need to keep the writing very focused and very succinct than if, say, you're writing a 5-page essay. And it makes sense that in a longer paper, you're able to elaborate more and add more sources to construct your argument. Sometimes it can, in my opinion, it can be harder to write a shorter paper because you are limited on what you can include in that shorter discussion. So keep that length in mind so that you can see how detailed you need to be, how much you need to expand on an argument. I have found too that it's much harder to edit down a paper once you have written it than it is to initially write the paper. It's very hard to edit down a paper after you put all your wonderful words in there. So keeping this length in mind will help you progress in your writing instead of backtracking. Okay, pay attention to the genre of the paper. For instance, if you're writing a reflection paper, you're going to use first person, I, me, mine, our. But first and second person is you, your, our, or I'm sorry, you, your, our, are used very sparingly in academic writing. But at some point, you will be asked to write a personal reflection. So when you write that personal reflection, of course, you want to write it in first person in order to fulfill the instructions. I'm sorry, we as second person, not our. Sorry. The rule of thumb, though, is that unless you're asked to write a reflection and include your own experiences, you should always write in third person using we, them, they, etc. Also, I will say that you want to avoid second person in academic writing because it assumes a familiarity with your reader and it can sound very demanding. So for reflections, write in first person, but for synthesis, analysis, evidence-based essays, things like that, always write in third person. So if you're writing an evidence-based essay, which is also an informative essay, its purpose is to seek information about a topic to educate yourself and others. So this is going to require you to write in a more objective, formal way and only state things that you can support through other sources. So for the evidence-based essay, you're usually going to be asked to look for scholarly sources, and you might even have a specific number of sources that you have to use. So it's going to be imperative to your professor that you include these specific number of good scholarly sources to help you construct and support your argument. So, and then an argumentative essay. is slightly different from the evidence-based essay, because in this essay, you're able to state a claim. For instance, if I was to state the claim, cheerleading should be considered a sport, okay? And then you would back up your claim with clear and logical arguments. Maybe cheerleading involves gymnastics. Cheerleading involves lifting. Cheerleading involves calisthenics and dance. So in most argumentative essays, you also need to support your claim with sources, as you do in the evidence-based essay. All right. An annotated bibliography is very much like a reference list. It starts out with a full citation. However, after the citation, you have to include a short essay. And the essay will include a summary of the article. It'll include analysis about the article, the pros and cons of the article, your opinion about the article, limitations, things like that will go in the analysis section. And then you have the application section, which discusses how you might use the source in your own work. Okay, the Writing Center has a template for annotated bibliography in APA on the online Writing Center's blog site that we gave you the link for. And you're welcome to download it. But I would ask that you make sure that you're following your professor's specific instructions for writing an annotated bibliography, because I found out the hard way, there's more than one way to format them. So please take that in mind, but you're welcome to use that template on the website. Okay, as you can see through this presentation, a PowerPoint presentation is an outline as opposed to stating things in full sentences. You would usually include bulleted points to emphasize the main points. And you might include graphics for it to make it more attractive or interesting. But for the purposes of academic presentations, though, you might want to pick a background that isn't too distracting and use a minimal number of words per slide, and don't have too many distracting graphics or animations, because you want people to pay attention to you, the presenter, and what is being presented. So PowerPoint should be neat, attractive, and as direct as possible. Okay, before you submit your paper, before you turn in your paper, skim your paper, look over your paper again. Make sure that you have answered each and every question in the prompt as completely as is possible. Make sure that you have covered all the areas in the rubric as well, as this will ensure the best grade. Run a spelling and grammar check. Remember that you have editing programs built into your word processing software like Microsoft Word, and you also have access to Grammarly through your ACU email. So use these programs, and these will often catch many of the spelling errors, grammatical situations that you might miss that might count off on your paper. Okay, read your paper out loud and slow. And this will help you catch errors that you normally wouldn't catch in reading silently over your paper. So give this a try. Just read it real slow and out loud. And then check the APA formatting of your in-text citations and reference lists. As we have shown you, several APA sources available to you, including the template that you can download. We have the webinars through the blog site. We even have an APA 7th edition cheat sheet on our resources page. So, and videos on the YouTube channel. So look at all of these sources and see if there's one of those that will help you. But you're also always welcome to send questions to us at the Online Writing Center. The email again is onlinewritingcenter@acu.edu. Or you can make an appointment with one of the tutors to look over your papers. And what we do in those appointments is we read over your assignments to make sure that everything is covered in both your assignment instructions as well as your rubric. We point out some errors that we might find and assist with the organization of your paper, as well as APA formatting. So again, you can make 2 appointments per week, up to 2 weeks in advance. Again, you have access to tutor.com through your ACU affiliation. So please remember that we are all here to support you with your writing. And thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. That was very helpful information. I'm going to pause now and see if there's any questions. We've covered a lot of information so far about resources available to you, tips for when you actually are writing each week. So if you were in week 2, and if you're coming into any questions that you have as you're starting your discussion post writing, your assignment writing, feel free to chat us your questions. And again, you can send us a chat directly, or you can send it directly to me or just to everyone in the room. So if you have questions, great. I will look to answer those questions as soon as I can, maybe between slides. And so I want to go and think about some characteristics of strong academic writing. And no matter if you're coming to your courses straight out of high school, or it's been a long time since you've been in school, or even if you've completed higher education degrees already and you're coming back for more, it's always helpful to go back to some of these basics and go over some of the expectations of writing in the classes you're taking here at ACU. So sometimes the practice of scholarly writing or academic writing has hidden expectations about what that means. And for professors who've been at this for years and years, they've been studying scholarship, they've been in school for years, now they are professors, so still in school for years, they're surrounded by academic writing. And that's not the case for everyone else, right? So for professors, academic writing has become automatic. It's second nature. It's almost like they've developed another language or dialect they are very familiar with, right? But everyone has to learn how to do it. And it can really be like learning a second language. So if this is something that you feel intimidated or nervous about, I hope that this webinar will help you feel more supported, but know that we're all learning and we're all developing our writing skills, no matter how much experience we have. As with anything, the more we practice something, the easier it becomes and the better we get. So you'll naturally improve over time. But again, I hope this information and visiting the online writing center, making that appointment, will help you feel even more confident going into your writing assignments. So some of the characteristics of strong academic writing. The first one I'll talk about is logical structure. And in US scholarship specifically, this usually means a linear or straightforward structure, like what Stephanie was talking about. It's very direct. And I say this, I acknowledge this because other cultures and languages and styles of writing have different structures that are considered logical, like a circular discussion where you go over a topic and you keep coming back to it over and over again, kind of like a circle. And there are other ways as well to make sense of different writing. For your writing at ACU, the expectation is that you write your papers with a linear and direct structure. So in your introduction paragraph, which for any papers that you're writing, you always want to include an introduction paragraph. In that paragraph, you'll usually include a brief outline, kind of like a forecast of what's coming in the rest of your paper. So let's say you're writing about a time in your life where you experienced great success, and you're comparing your response to that experience to another time when you failed at something. In your introduction, then, you would briefly introduce both experiences, a great success and a failure, and your response to them. Always introduce the topics in the same order that you present them in the paper. So if you discuss your experience with success first in your paper, then your experience with failure next, followed by your reflection on how you responded in each of those situations, you should list those things in the same order in your introduction. Success first, failure next, followed by the key takeaway or reflection. So that's kind of what we mean with linear structure. It goes in order, A, B, C. With this in mind, it's helpful to outline your whole paper before you write the introduction. And this isn't a necessary step, but some might find it helpful so that you know what order to introduce your paper's topics in when you're writing your introduction. Some people even find it easier to go back and write the introduction after they've written the rest of the paper. So find what works for you. Another characteristic of strong academic writing is explicit argumentation. And here, when I say explicit, that means clear. So clear argumentation. And like Stephanie said, there's lots of different types of writing assignments. I'm going to argue that most of your writing assignments are actually argument papers. You're going to make some claims in all sorts of papers, whether you're reflecting on your life, you're writing about different sources, that evidence-based argument, whatever type of writing you are engaging in, think about it as an argument. And what do I mean by argument? I'm not really talking about a conflict. I'm talking about making a strong claim. You're arguing for something. And when you think about your writing that way, you want to convince your reader that you are credible. They should listen to your opinions or your conclusions. And you've got logical ideas that you're backing up. So even in a reflective paper like the one I described, talking about your success and failure, you're making a case for why those experiences affected you the way they did and why it makes sense that you reacted the way you did. So if you keep in mind that you're trying to be persuasive every time you write, this will help you add details and transitions that will help the reader, your professor, your classmates, follow your train of thought and ultimately agree with or at least understand you. Another characteristic is clear, convincing evidence that's appropriate to the scope of your paper. So what does that mean? First, it's necessary in most papers to include outside sources. Sometimes your professors give you a certain number, like Stephanie mentioned. You've got to use sources in a lot of your writing. Be sure you're looking for credible, reliable sources. Most of the readings you're assigned in your courses are scholarly and reliable, so you can use those in your papers. They're peer-reviewed journal articles, meaning other scholars have vetted them and they agree that the information in this article, it's valid, it's good. Book chapters can be reliable. Be careful with the types of websites you use as sources to back up claims. Usually you want to find websites that end in .edu or .org. A lot of sites that end with .com are ones that anyone can write, right? So they might be a little less credible, they're considered less scholarly, and that's just a general kind of guideline. There are exceptions, of course. But if you are looking at different websites and you notice that the end of the URL is .edu, that means it's associated with some sort of educational institution, or .org, it's an organizational website. So those are usually considered more credible. All right, another characteristic is having synthesis of your ideas and evidence. So we're not just including sources in our writing to include sources. It may be part of the reason we're being asked to include sources, so we do. Simple as that. But the goal is to show your professor that you understand and can interpret those sources. So every time you include a quote from a source or a piece of information from a source, be sure to explain, what is that source or that idea or that quote? What does that mean? Why is it important or relevant to your topic? It's really easy to just plop a quote into your paper because it's really good, you really liked it, it stood out to you. But if you just leave it at that and you move on, you're writing other ideas, it's considered choppy or unfinished. We always need to explain why a quote is relevant. So, for example, if I were to include the fact that a common response to grief is anger and sleeplessness. That's from the CDC in 2020. I would also need to relate this back to my overall topic. So in my reflection paper from earlier, I might write this. My response to failing was to go home and throw all the towels onto the ground in anger and then take a nap. According to the CDC 2020, it is common to experience anger and sleeplessness while grieving. This is important because I think I was not just angry about my failure, I was grieving my loss. So that's an example. Your reflections might include some sources, kind of giving an explanation for what happened. But notice that I always follow up that information from a source with something like, this is important because I'm explaining why I added that information from the CDC instead of just plopping it in. So that's really going to set your writing apart from high school level writing. When we're thinking about college level writing, always explain every quote and piece of information from outside sources. Lastly, clear connections to the topic. Staying on topic in a paper is hard because it requires a plan for all the pieces of the paper. And people are different kinds of planners, right? So if you are someone who likes to go for it and then maybe take a look at it and say, hey, it worked out, that might work for you. I am not here to say there's just one right way to go at your writing process. But I find for me that making a plan in advance can usually help. One way to work on this is to include a step in your writing process towards the end for connecting the dots. After you've written most of your paper out, read through it and see, do I have a clear topic sentence for each paragraph that relates to the overall topic of the paper? It might be clear to you, but think about it from the professor's perspective or from your reader's perspective. Is each sentence that begins every paragraph really clearly connected to the topic, to the overall point of your paper? Are there any sentences that could use a transition word between them to make the ideas flow smoother? Use transition words like therefore to show that you are drawing a conclusion from the information you've just presented. Or use the phrase in contrast or however to present new or conflicting information. Those short little transitions can go a long way in making your writing smooth. It adds flow. So if you ever get feedback that your writing is choppy, it doesn't flow well, sometimes it involves going back in to those sentences and adding in those small transition words. It's a pretty simple thing to do, but it can really go a long way. So we're about 10 minutes to the end. I'm going to go ahead and keep going over some strong academic writing techniques or things to be thinking about as far as what's expected of your writing. And again, if you have any questions about upcoming assignments that you're working on, definitely let us know. So strong academic writing uses punctuation to clarify connections. So here are a few examples. There's a whole lot of examples we could use, but the first one is called the Oxford comma. You might not ever need to know that it's called the Oxford comma, but that's what it's called. And it's commonly left out, but in APA writing, this is actually a rule that you should follow if you're writing an APA style. So here's this example. They gathered demographic, survey, and interview data. If you're listing things, 3 or more things in a row, just like this, demographic, survey, and interview, this comma before the word and, or sorry, if you're using the word or, same thing applies. That comma is the Oxford comma, and APA says we should use it in lists. So basically, put a comma between everything in your lists. Semicolons are another good one to know about. Here's an example. We're using 2 sentences and they're really connected. They're closely related. And to show that these 2 sentences are closely related, we can even visually show it with the punctuation of a semicolon. So here's an example. The qualitative data showed a positive correlation between the variables. However, the quantitative data was less clear. I might have misread that, but you get the idea. We're giving 2 closely related ideas, connecting them instead of separating them with a period, connecting them with a semicolon is another way to show connections to your readers. So hopefully those examples are helpful to just think about your punctuation a little bit, about what am I conveying with this punctuation. Specific words for specific meanings. So some writing styles like MLA or the humanities encourage using a variety of word choices. So if you refer to a book, you might later refer to that book with other terms, more flowery terms like a novel, story, classic. In APA style, though, it is best to use your terms consistently. So if you're referring, for example, to a theory, that word theory, just use the word theory throughout your paper instead of trying to mix it up with other similar terms like concept or model or lens. You want to be really specific with the words you're using. And so that's a little bit counterintuitive, especially if you love creative writing. We're trying to write in your coursework more scientifically. So basically, the goal of your writing should be clarity and simplicity, not overly flowery, creative, or academic, or even overly academic. You want to keep it simple. A common misconception about academic writing is that it has to sound over the top smart, use huge words everywhere, and lots of phrases, long sentences. I argue that that's not really true. You should try to communicate your great ideas simply and clearly above all else. So a couple other things here. Strong academic writing uses sentences to express thoughts. That seems really simple, but a couple of things that we run into often in the Writing Center. You want to avoid fragments. And what are fragments? These are incomplete thoughts. So listen to this fragment and see if you can hear the incomplete thought. In 1 year, the administration's policies, period. That doesn't say anything about what happened in the year, what were the policies. It's just incomplete. And that can happen, especially if you're writing quickly, which happens. So as you're reading through, make sure that every sentence is finished. You also want to avoid run-ons, which is sort of the opposite problem, where you're putting more than one thought together in one sentence. Too many sentences in one. For example, the administration's policies changed the leaders thought it was for the best. Even as I read it, I got a little confused. The administration's policies changed, the leaders thought it was for the best. That's 2 separate ideas that really should be separated with a period to show that they're 2 separate sentences. So one sentence, one thought. That's the general rule. For example, in 1 year, the administration's policies changed. That's great. That's a good sentence. Or you might say, in 1 year, the administration's policies changed because the leaders thought it was for the best. So there's lots of right ways to write sentences. Just try and make sure that it's clearly one thought for one sentence. Academic writing uses paragraphs to focus on main points. These are like the stepping stones of the whole paper. What are the big points you're making? Try to have at least one paragraph for each point. And then sections to organize overall ideas. And these are the major parts of the paper: the introduction, the body, the conclusion. Maybe there are more sections in the body, the main section of your paper, like a section for research and then a section for reflection. You can use APA subheadings to break the paper up into these big sections visually. Again, if you download our template, you can see examples of these subheadings and type in your own to give your paper more organization. All right, and we are just about through. I want to make sure I cover this again. Online Writing Center at acu.edu. That's our shared email address. I hope you will schedule an appointment. It's free, so give us a shot. And of course, make use of all of the writing resources available to you. Now, if you have any questions, I'll be sure to stick around for another couple of minutes. But otherwise, I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and we hope to see you and work with you soon.